Welcome everyone. My name is Patrick from Simply Spanish, and today we're going to be talking about verbs in Spanish. We're going to break down verbs as much as possible, and we're going to learn a little bit about the process of how we can conjugate verbs in Spanish. So the first question we have to ask, and we have to remind ourselves of what is a verb. The answer is a verb. A verb is a word that describes an action, right? In this example, we have he runs. Uh, Runs is a verb because that is the action, and he is very important because he is a subject pronoun. We're gonna go into that a little bit deeper, but basically, uh, the subject is just who or what does the action in the sentence. All right. So there are three types of verbs in Spanish. There are AR, ER, and IR verbs. We're going to be using these specific three examples for this video on how you can conjugate all of them and different methods. So we're going to go through the instructions um, of what a verb is, the breakdown of what a verb is. So when you look at a verb, you have to know that there are two parts of a verb. There is the stem and there is the infinitive ending. And those two together make the infinitive verb form. So the word hablar is in an infinitive verb form, or sometimes you can just say the infinitive. The infinitive verb form is just the form of when a verb is just not conjugated at all, meaning it's not saying he runs, it's not saying she runs, it's just to speak. In this example, it's not directed to a specific subject or person do that action. Now, the stem, however, is any part of the word before the infinitive ending. Remember, we just talked about three different types of verbs, which are AR, ER, and IR. So any verb you see in the infinitive, you'll know because it will end in one of those three options. Everything before the infinitive ending, so everything before the AR, is the stem of the verb. So now that we understand a verb and its parts, let's go and see how we can use that to our advantage to conjugate. So here are the instructions on how you can conjugate a regular verb in the present tense. So the first step is to remove the infinitive ending, and the second step is to add the appropriate verbal ending. We just learned about infinitive endings. We're now going to learn what are verbal endings. How do I know what appropriate verbal ending to add? Well, here it is. We discussed subject pronouns. Subject pronouns being, right, the thing, the object, or the person, right, that does the action in the sentence. So he, she, I, etc. Concept that you need to understand is in Spanish, every subject pronoun has a specific verbal ending. As you can see, some of them are duplicated. Don't worry about memorizing these at this moment. Just understand that each subject pronoun is there's a specific verbal ending that goes with that subject pronoun. So, as you can see, yo has the verbal ending of o, and so forth, right? So that is how you are going to choose the appropriate verbal ending. This list, as you can see, these examples. All right. So let's continue. Okay, so let's go through the process of how we follow the instruction. We remove the infinitive ending, and we add the verbal ending. Two steps, super simple, and here we're seeing it there. So we move from the word hablar, which means to speak, and then we start to conjugate it to I speak, hablo. And that is because the correct verbal ending for I, or in Spanish we would say yo, is o. And that's how we get hablo. Remember that in the middle of this process, we removed the AR and we were left with the stem, as you can see here. And then that's how we knew how what we needed to do after was just to add the appropriate ending to get the conjugated word. Yo hablo or hablo, right, is the correct conjugation for I speak. Here is another example. So we change hablar into habla, which means he speaks, and in some case it can mean she speaks, depending on what subject pronoun you want to use. But he speaks is habla because we did the same thing, except we changed the subject pronoun to a conjugation, a different conjugation, and now it means a different thing. And that's how you know which uh, ending you need to do, because you have to understand the appropriate, as I said, the appropriate verbal ending. We're going to add that to the stem once we've removed the infinitive ending, right? So this is the process for present tense regular uh, verbs, right? Now we have to learn verbal endings for present tense verbs in the ER and the IR type. So the ER and IR, the good thing about this is that they share all verbal endings except nosotros. When it comes to nosotros, if it's an ER verb, it's going to be hemos. If it's an IR verb, it's going to be hemos. Again, don't worry about memorizing them now. You have the list. You can look at it later, but understand the concept of verbal endings being attached to subject pronouns. And that's how you know which verbal ending is appropriate to add. So if you want to ask yourself, what should I conjugate it to? The appropriate verbal ending goes with the appropriate subject pronoun, and then you'll know, right? Once you memorize that in the future. Okay, so let's look at the example of beber, which is an ER verb. So we remove the ER, the infinitive ending. We add the O, I drink, yo bebo, because that is the appropriate verbal ending. Okay, again with the other another example, beber turns into el bebe or bebe because um, it is the appropriate verbal ending, and that means he drinks. He drinks, right? So bebo, I drink. Bebe, he drinks. Okay, so let's continue here. We have another set of instructions here. This instruction has one additional step, and this is just for irregular verbs in the present tense, right? We're still in present tense. We're just going to look at irregular verbs, right? So we're going to still remove the infinitive ending. We are going to add the appropriate verbal ending at the end, but in the middle, we need to make a stem change adjustments, and this is going to be for all verbal endings except nosotros. That is going to come in later. We're not going to really touch on that this video, but in the future. But just know that wherever it is necessary, we need to make an adjustment, a stem change. We talked about stems, and so this is the additional step. So let's look at how that looks. So we have the verb mentir, an IR, uh, verb, and so we have to remove the infinitive ending, and we're left with this ment, which is meant. And so we can't just add the O because we have to do the middle step, which is follow the stem change, the correct stem change. This verb is an irregular verb with the stem change rules of wherever there's an E, it has to be changed to an IE. So basically adding an I, right? You can see this, the instructions on the right. I do have a list of stem changing verbs. I will share the link in the description of this video so that you can look at different types of stem changing verbs because it's very important. Okay, anyway, so we change the stem after we've removed the ending, and then we add the appropriate verbal ending. And so because we change it, it becomes from bent to viento, and you can see that I highlighted because we had to make the stem change additional. So that's just the additional step. That's the only additional thing you have to see. to do. And so that is for the irregular present tense verbs. So I'm gonna leave you with kind of like your own research to do. There are a few verbs like this. There actually are a lot of verbs like this with this specific stem change rule. It's actually a very popular rule, so to speak, right? But stem changes are pretty popular and it's very useful for you to learn different stem change rules. I will not go through that in the video. There are many stem change rules, and I will leave a link in the description for you to learn those rules. Okay, so here are the words that you should look up. We have sentir, pensar, and perder. So go look those up, look up the meanings, look up how you can conjugate them, and how you can work with practicing the stem change, specifically the E to IE stem change, because it's very useful and it's very popular in Spanish. And that is the end of the presentation. But lastly, I just want to leave you with some vocabulary that's super important that we've learned. So go ahead and look at these, memorize what they mean. Hopefully, you can remember, but I'll give you a quick refresher. A stem is everything in front of or before the infinitive ending, right? The infinitive ending, there are three that exist in Spanish: AR, IR, and ER infinitive endings, right? And we have verbal endings. These are different endings that we add based on the subject pronoun that we're using. And of course, the subject or subject pronoun is basically the object, the person, the thing that is doing the action that we want to conjugate based on who is doing that action. All right. So I wish you luck with this. This concept is going to help you to go forward with different conjugations, not just present tense. Once you understand the stem and different instructions of breaking down how we do conjugations. This will be a series. I will continue. The next one will be the future tense, and then we'll discuss exactly the instructions of how we create the future tense. All right. So thank you for watching.